Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones! How are you today? You know what's cool? Personas. Personas are cool, aren't they? Deities, demigods, and other such legends summoned from an individual's soul and given forms loaded with symbolism and lore. It is the best. A couple of years back, I did a video on my top 10 personas, a list that I'll fully admit would probably be quite different if I were to ever remake it. But instead of remaking that, what if I took a look at the other end of the spectrum? After being cooped up for over a month, I'm starting to feel negative. So let's reverse that arcana and take a look at my least favorite personas. The personas that for one reason or another, I just don't like them. Just like last time, consider this your spoiler warning for all Persona titles up until now, and let me quickly go over who is and isn't eligible for this list. Like before, rule number 1 is I'm only counting personas that were specifically designed as personas. So Kaneko demons like Kaiwan or Mara that can be used as personas aren't even being considered. A couple of other rules to help clarify things: I'm only counting personas from the games, so consider yourself lucky, Amatsu Mikabushi. And I also decided to leave out any personas that, sure, aren't particularly good, but are kinda considered easy targets. So consider yourself lucky, Joker Degradation number 2. Sorry not sorry in advance if one of your personal favorites is on this list, but remember, these are my least favorites, and the reasons for their inclusion here are based on my own subjective feelings. Maybe I hate their design, or think they fall short story-wise, but let's be real, on a list like this, it's mostly going to be that I hate their design. Let's go ahead and get started. So, our first persona is one that I actually like quite a lot, design-wise. Persona 1's Vishnu combines Hindu mythology with semi-Shakespearean themes. He's an awesome-looking persona that even graces the front cover of both versions of Persona 1. So, why is he one of my least favorites? Because simply put, he is just not worth the effort. Vishnu is essentially the completion bonus persona of this game, the original Orpheus Telos. To get Vishnu, you have to negotiate a card from all 142 eligible demons in the game, but Persona 1 doesn't keep track of which cards you have or haven't gotten yet, so you better be writing those down yourself. To make him, you have to use his special totem while also using the specific fusion combination of Yokshani and Gandharva, so you're unable to fuse any good spells onto him. Then you have to be level 86 to use him, which is super overkill in Persona 1, and at the end of the day, he's just honestly not that good. Vishnu is a pretty labor-intensive persona to get, only to end up being substantially worse than the protagonist's regular ultimate persona. And unfortunately for him, just looking cool isn't going to change that. Persona 2 is home to some absolutely amazing persona designs. Kronos, Gabriel, Odysseus, and even a one-off random persona like Drill Hanya is incredible. You know who's not though? Osteria. Osteria isn't amazing. In fact, compared to the fantastic Callisto, Ulala Serizawa's initial persona, she's downright disappointing. Sure, the planetarium lights work on a symbolic level, as she's both a goddess of the stars and represents the star arcana, and even follows a symbolic relationship to her user, as both of Ulala's personas, being victims of Zeus's debauchery, are representative of Ulala's own shortcomings with men, but I'm sorry, I think she just looks super goofy. Also, this is a minor gripe, but they localized Osteria as Astria. Thankfully, Amanda Wynn Lee knew how to pronounce it correctly. Back in my first video, I mentioned Castor as one of my personal favorites. That sweet-looking horse monster has stuck with me in the best kind of way. But you know who stuck with me in the worst kind of way? His twin brother, Polydeuces. This is another one I'll confess I mainly dislike just for the way it looks. I definitely see how Soejimo is trying to keep a family resemblance, but it's clear to me Castor got most of the good genes here. There's just something about that baby blue color scheme that makes it look really non-threatening. And I don't know how to explain this, but like, Does anyone else think he looks like a mattress? I've always thought he looked like a mattress. It's weird. But hey, at least he eventually turns into Caesar, and if that's not a proper glow-up, I don't know what is. But sometimes the glow is too strong. Sometimes there's too much glow-up, and you up too close to the glowing... I think I'm mixing my metaphors here. Look, I don't like Amaterasu, okay? Most of Persona 4's initial personas were pretty memorable and iconic, which is probably why the majority of the spin-offs kept them around. Yukiko's Konohana Sakuya was an incredibly well-designed persona that combined cherry blossoms with the cheerleader motif, and it just looked great from head to toe. Amaterasu removed nearly all of that charm by just being the most bare-bones outline of a woman covered in pure glowy glowness, and then they slapped on some aluminum siding. I know she's supposed to be a sun goddess, but there had to be a more interesting way to convey that, and to me, this just feels like a half-finished persona design. On the plus side, at least Yukiko's third-tier persona, Sumeo Okame, was mildly better. In Persona 1, Yukino Mayuzumi's initial persona was Vesta, and it was this cool-looking fire, genie, jester, ghost thing. Don't get me wrong, I don't love it or anything, but I thought it was a pretty nice design overall. In Persona 2 Innocent Sin, Vesta is back as Yukino's initial persona, and it's... this thing. It's got gears and scales and a weird biker helmet and... yeah, look, I just think it's a massive disappointment from what Vesta once was, and maybe the weakest design in the entire Persona 2 duology. Also, and I'm curious who else feels the same way, but the gear wheel things just make me want to call it Vespa. You know, like those Italian scooters. Vroom. Going back to my top 10 personas list, I included Naoto Shiragane's initial persona, Sukuna Hikuna. It stood out to me as a unique design and a clever contrast to what a persona normally looks like due to its diminutive size. While I do think that her ultimate persona, Yamato Takeru, is a bit of a letdown, that's not who made this list. See, Yamato Takeru still had a cool design, combining tokusatsu show elements with the white bird symbolism associated with the legendary hero Naoto's ultimate persona was based on. But in Golden, we got third-tier personas, and Naoto's third-tier Golden persona, Yamato Sumeragi, just appears as a palette swap with long golden hair. And sorry Sumeragi, but Yukiko's Golden persona handled the long blonde hair thing way better than you did. To be fair, most of the third-tier personas were palette swaps with minor upgrades, but to me, Naoto's just felt the most underwhelming, compared to the fiery afro of Personald McDonald, or even the whatever the heck happened to Teddy's. This thing feels like a disappointment compared to Yamato Takeru, who to me was already a step down from Sukuna Hikuna. I personally just see nothing redeeming about this particular third-tier form. Hey, speaking of third-tier forms, we recently got quite a few of those with Persona 5 Royal, didn't we? I have pretty mixed feelings talking about this one because I know a lot of people love him, and I'll also confess that what I don't like about this persona is most likely the entire intended point of its existence. If there was one word I could use to describe this persona, it'd be... gaudy. Gore Okichi is an insanely gaudy persona. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against a persona going a little over the top with its design. Case in point, I think some part of me loves whatever the heck happened to Teddy's. But I just don't really like this style over substance vibe Gore Okichi is throwing out there. It kinda feels like a weird antithesis to Yusuke as a character, and the weirdest, most accurate way I can describe him is I feel like Gore Okichi is what Goemon would have looked like if Madarame had awoken to him. And that has this persona leaving a pretty bitter taste in my mouth. I know she's hardly who comes to mind when we think of our favorite Persona characters. Heck, even when you ask someone who their favorite Persona 1 character is, you're probably not going to find too many people saying Yuca Ayase. But I've always had something of a soft spot for the ditzy little airhead who brutally smacks down chubby nerds. Wait. But anyway, Yuca has a bright and cheery design, and her initial persona, Hori, captured her energy pretty well. I was excited to see what powerful goddess or lady would become her ultimate persona. But then you get it and discover her ultimate persona, Frey, is a guy with a stick. And to me, that is reason enough to have him so high on this list. Not only is he one of the blandest persona designs in the entire franchise, but he is such an aesthetic mismatch for his wielder. It's literally just a guy with a stick. Stupid. Anat from Persona 5 seems to be a very divisive persona. Some people love her, some people hate her. I'm obviously in the latter category since she's all the way at number 2 on a list of my least favorite personas. In fact, I was debating pretty hard over whether or not she'd get the number 1 spot. I will say to Anat's credit, the idea of a persona literally transforming itself to go from initial to ultimate is a pretty cool idea. But she still looks ridiculous and genuinely robs Makoto's persona of what made it truly stand out as unique in the franchise. I've heard many people say that Anat is a transformer, but I don't agree with that. Most of the Transformers were designed to still look cool in their robot forms. Anat looks more like one of the GoBots. Anat is the only ultimate persona that I disliked to the point where I didn't want to use Makoto in my team because of it. Until Royal, when Agnes showed up, that is. Oh, this one hurts. This one hurts me on a different level than every other persona on this list. You've probably noticed by now that a lot of the personas on this list boil down to me simply not liking their design. Maybe to some that's an unfair reason, but I've always seen Persona as a series with a lot of visual polish, and I think summoning a persona should invoke positive feelings rather than, ugh, look at that thing. This number 1 pick is no different. I'm not a fan of its design, but I'm so monumentally disappointed that I don't like its design because of how much I love who this persona is and what she represents for the character. Picture this. You're a young child out for a walk with your mother, and she's killed right in front of you by a rampaging persona. You're scared, confused, and when you tell the police what happened, they just assume you watched too much anime. It's that event that awakens the power of persona within you. Your one goal becomes a personal vendetta against the one who did this to you. And what persona could possibly fit better than the Greek goddess of revenge herself, Nemesis? That is a fantastic setup for a perfect deity. Ken Amada's Nemesis could not have been a better choice given his story. But why does it look like that? If Anat looks like one of the GoBots, Nemesis looks like one of the Burger King exclusive Z-Bots. Why does the Goddess of Vengeance look like an action figure you'd find in the one toy aisle at Walgreens? I know it's supposed to look somewhat childish because of its connection to Ken, but Sukuna Hikona had that same handicap and looked fantastic. Nemesis is just such a letdown to me, and the more I stare at it, the more confused I am. For example, are those eyes actually supposed to be boobs and the buzzsaw is going through her face? I couldn't tell you. So, there you go, 10 of my least favorite personas. I'm sure I mentioned a couple of personal favorites for some of you out there, but hey, I'm not here to tell you who to like or dislike, because the great thing about Persona is the fantastic variety of great stuff to pick from. Anyway, who are some of your least favorite personas and why? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content, and if you really want to help support me in the channel, consider pledging to my Patreon. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching, and until next time, take care.